Well, hello everybody, welcome. My name is Raymond, and many of you know me. For those of you who don't, with my partner Zai, we used to own Three Dudes Quilting quilt shop in Ahwatukee, Arizona. We had it for 10 years, and I retired from there and went to work for 35th Ave Sew Vac, and then retired from there and decided I would just start teaching more and designing more of my patterns. When we owned the store, one of the first things I did was make a couple of samples for the store, and they're hanging up there and looking really, really pretty. I'm really proud of them. The problem was people came in and said, I want to make that. And I didn't have a pattern. I hadn't written one. So, guess I had to learn how to write patterns, which is a whole lot different thing. I don't write my patterns like a lot of designers do. The designer goes to the computer, has an idea, and writes up a pattern. I take my fabric and I make the quilt first before I write the pattern. So it makes it a little more difficult for me sometimes because I can't remember what I did. But you learn. It's really great fun though. I take my strip sets, which is what I normally work with, and some yardage, and I try and create something. Sitting at the sewing machine, just start sewing it and see what happens. Makes a great way for me to learn to do quilts, and they're always different and exciting. I have about 65 patterns that I've written, and you're going to see a sample of a couple of them today. When you write a pattern, before you can really publish it, you need to test it. Well, testing a pattern means somebody else has to make the pattern. Because if you do it, you know what you did wrong, and you just do it anyway. So I teach a class called Improv, where everybody gets to choose strips from my stash. I have about 3,000 2.5-inch strips in my stash right now. I bring them all to the class, and everybody gets to choose 40 or 45, whatever we need for the project, and we make something. And I'm going to show you some samples of those today. But that's the way the pattern is kind of drafted to class, and everybody works on it together. They tell me what I'm doing wrong, what I'm doing right, and where my mistakes are, and my spelling mistakes. And spell check does not always work, by the way. It's great fun, but it doesn't always work. The two behind me are some of the most recent improv classes or new patterns that I wrote. This one is called Double Hourglass. One of the things that's tough is naming patterns. How do you name a quilt? Well, this is a double hourglass. You kind of see that there. This one is called 5 and 4. Well, why is it called 5 and 4? Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 4. So 5 and 4. Pretty sneaky way to get a name for a pattern. We really had fun doing these in classes, and I wish I could show you the variations that everybody had using the scraps. These really work wonderful as scrap quilts. It's been fun for me to do all this, and I'm enjoying meeting people and using this as a way to encourage them to sew and create on their own. Using my patterns, I don't necessarily want you to make the quilt like I made it. I want you to use it and experiment with it and make it your own. This one that we did, which was an improv and a class pattern I wrote, this is called Serpentine. And it's because of the way I laid it out. In the finished pattern, there are probably at least 10 ways to lay out your quilt. All different, all exciting, and that way you can make the quilt your own. This one was done with scraps out of the stash, and it's just the way it turned out. That's why it got named Serpentine. But when I get these and I've got them done, I then sell the patterns. It can be great fun to do. This one was a Ballet Pop, which Ballet Pop, by the way, for disclaimers, is a registered trademark trade name by Hoffman for 2.5-inch strips of batik fabrics. And a Jelly Roll, which is the other 2.5-inch strip set, is a registered trade name by Moda for 2.5 strips of print fabric. So we'll use those terms interchangeably, but that's where they come from. This one, 40 2.5-inch strips of batiks from the stash, and the leftovers are used in the borders. That way we're not wasting any fabrics. I want to treat myself right and buy the best fabric I can, but that being said, I don't want to waste it. So we use all of it in the quilt. This is called a 6-pack hexagon. And again, I've seen this in so many different colorways and variations. It's really fun to see somebody else's work. I also promote on my website that if you finish one of my quilts from buying a pattern or taking class, that you send me a picture of it. And I post it on my website and on Facebook. So you can become famous. And if you don't want to become famous, I'll just say a student did it. Works for me too. This one is 21 Fabric Fun. Great improv class. Why is it called 21 Fabric Fun, you ask? Well, there's 21 fabrics, and it was fun to make. My leftovers are here on the border. Border doesn't have to go all the way around, by the way. A border just has to accent your quilt. So we use the leftovers in the border, and that way you're not wasting any fabric. Here we have one of my most popular classes and patterns, and it's called 3 Points. and it actually makes, you can't see it in the camera, but a queen size quilt. So one Valley Popper jelly roll and a little bit of background, well, about 3 yards of background, makes a queen size quilt. People always ask me, well, how big are your quilts going to be? Depends on the fabric that I use and how much I've got. They come in different sizes because of the way the fabric works. Like I said, I don't start with a pre-plan that it's going to be a king size quilt or whatever. It's however long my fabric lasts, and that's how big the quilt winds up being. But it's great fun to do. We're going to show you later at the end some of my stash that I brought today. I have about 3,000 strips currently in my stash, enough to make 75 quilts, so I should get busy. But we teach that class and it's great fun. In addition to the quilting, teaching my own patterns and my own quilts, I do teach a one block wonder class. And if you're not familiar with that, Google it. One block wonder is one fabric, cut in hexagons, and making a quilt. I've had a great time teaching that class. It's been great fun. And again, it's so interesting to see what other people have done with the fabrics. Always unique and different. I try and encourage people to be creative, to let their creativeness out and enjoy the journey that they're doing. Quilting is a great art, craft, hobby. It's emotional, it's spiritual, it's helpful, it's supportive. It's a great thing to have. You must enjoy the journey when you do it. So today my wish for you is enjoy your quilting journey. Thank you.